over to Richard.
Good evening. Many years ago, when we were very young, my wife and I visited at her cottage in Paul. And after knocking on the door for what seemed like an hour, we managed to wake her up, and she let us in, sat us down, and asked whether we would like a cup of tea. My first mistake was to say yes, because her next question was India or China. And that floored me completely, because I'm from Yorkshire. All I know is can do that. But whatever I answered, when it arrived, it was completely undrinkable. But being a well-brought-up boy from Yorkshire, I drank it anyway. But my composure was pretty much shot to pieces. And I'm very sorry to say that I remember almost nothing of the rest of the time that we spent with her. And when I think about the amount of time I've spent in researching her work and in cataloguing her work and in writing about her work and trying to publicise her work, this, as you can imagine, is enormously frustrating. But that's the way it is. So we talked about something or other for whatever period of time we talked about it. And then she took us down. Instead took us down the garden path, because literally her studio was down the garden path. And she showed us the work that she was working on and the recent work that she'd been doing. And amongst the recent work was all these beautiful little enamel paintings that some of you will be familiar with, in particular her tarot cards. And she showed us these works. Then we went back to the house, and she was kind enough to sign all the copies of her books that we'd brought with us. Then she asked us whether there was a particular painting that we would like to buy. And there was one on the wall, hanging on the wall in her living room, which had been taking my eye ever since we'd arrived. And I said, yes, that one. And she took it down and showed it to us. And I was absolutely astonished. I always knew that whatever else art is, it's a commodity. But to actually have the artist take it off the wall and sell it to me was really something really quite special, and that stayed with me ever since. And she even trusted us enough to take a post-dated cheque, because we had no money in the bank, being from Yorkshire. Anyway, we still have it, and I've brought it with us today, and here it is, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it. What appealed to me at the time was simply the colours and the forms. It appealed on a non-rational, emotive kind of basis. I knew very little about her work. No one really knew very much about her work. So my appreciation of it was I'll say, guttural, visceral, non-rational response, which has remained just as strong ever since, even though I now know a good deal more about her work and about her particular motifs. So if those of you who want to continue to relate to paintings on an emotive level rather than an intellectual or rational level, this is the time for you to start texting. For the rest of you, I will try and explain what is going on here. The painting is called Linked Islands, and she painted it in 1947. The technique is decalcomania. Many of you will be familiar with that. Taking paint, spreading it more or less at random, or perhaps with some preconceived forms in mind on the surface of a support, paper, canvas, or whatever, squishing it with another piece of material, separating them apart, and then in some way interpreting the image that you find there. So it's decalcomania, one of the automatic techniques that many of you I know have been practicing. The linked islands in question are, or is, St Agnes on the Scilly Islands. This is two islands linked by a sandbar. The western island, the larger of the two, is called St Agnes, and it contains a holy well or a wishing well dedicated to one of the more obscure Cornish saints, Santa Lamorna, a female saint. If you go there, you'll see the well is basically a puddle surrounded by curbstones, Here, when you come to see it later, you'll notice that she's painted it in a much more grandiose, if that's the right word, fashion. She's put a plinth of steps and she's put a statuette of the goddess or the saint on top. It isn't really like that at all. So this is an imaginative construction. And what this is to do with the power of female earth energies. She was very taken by the old alchemical idea of the 4 elements, and water, of course, is the typical female element. And she regarded water coming up from the ground at some places that we now regard as holy wells or sacred springs as being particularly powerful places where the female earth energies rose to the surface. So the island on the left is gendered as female. The island on the right that's linked to it is spelled G-U-G-H, which I believe is pronounced Jew.
No,
but
it's good.
Okay, good. Well, we will write to Wikipedia afterwards then.
Actually, I was at one as well about 2 weeks ago. It's quite full.
Is it?
Yeah, it's
okay.
looking healthy.
But it doesn't have a flight of stairs for a statue with all this on top.
It's got one step down.
One step down.
Not,
Okay.
not a flight.
Not a flight. Okay. And you say it's pronounced
Goo.
goo.
It comes from the Cornish word and hue, well, goo, which means neck, headland.
Okay, good. On Goo, there is a standing stone, the old man of Goo. And that looks pretty much the way she has painted it here. So, in Colquhoun's visual vocabulary, standing stones are nearly always phallic symbols. Hardly surprising, they're phallic symbols to most people. So you have the male phallic menhir plunging its energies into the earth, and the female energies are rising from the earth. When you read the titles of her books, The Living Stones, The Crying of the Wind, don't forget these titles are not simply metaphors. These are to be taken as literal truths. She was an animist who believed that everything in nature, everything was alive, everything had a spark of divine inspiration in it. And the only thing that makes me different from a piece of rock is simply a matter of degree. So everything is living. So there's the male side on the right, the female side on the left. At high tide, the linking sandbar is should be covered. So the 2 islands, the 2 genders are separate. As the tide goes out, the 2 genders come together. If you read her writings about esoteric matters, you will realise that androgyny is one of the core concepts in her thinking. The idea that spiritual salvation lies in the unification of the separated genders. An awful lot of her writings about that. So here, in the natural world, we have the 2 genders apart, they come together, they go apart, in the natural rhythms of nature in perpetuity. Quite an astonishing idea, really, I think. What else can I say about it? Oh, yes. So the 2 genders coming in, going apart, reminds us that the leader of the Surrealist movement, André Breton, defined Surrealism as the union of opposites, gender being one of them. And a key alchemical motto, we heard it referenced earlier, is conjunctio oppositorum, the conjunction of opposites. So in this one painting, it brings together all the key themes and ideas and techniques of her mature practice. It's one of a series of works. There are about 7 in total. It's difficult to tell precisely because some of them might be studies and discarded. I don't really know, but I think probably about 7. If you went to the Penlee exhibition a few months ago, you will have seen another one in this series, which I think is actually a rather better work than this one. So objectively, this isn't so good. But bollocks to objectivity, this one's mine. On the stage here, I've brought along, if you come and have a look at this, you're more than welcome later. Please don't pour drinks and jam all over it. This is an excerpt from her dream diaries. She kept diaries of her nocturnal dreams all her adult life. And she used the dreams as the basis of her poetry, the basis of her short stories. Use of Hermogenes is almost entirely a dream narrative. She used dreams as the basis from which she developed magical rituals. And I've left it open at the page where she has records a dream in which she has an esoteric insight in that the earth is a living being. I mean, it's not particularly, she knew that already, but this must have come as a particular insight to her. And she refers to these places where the waters arise from the earth, these powerful gendered places, as fountains out of Hecate, the fountains from the underworld. Perhaps you can
your invitation to come and speak. I'm interested in talking about some of the drawings which are in this book, The Living Stones. As you probably know, Ithell Colquhoun both wrote and illustrated her own works. And my interest in her painted work is comparatively recent, having seen a show in 2009, many of you may have seen this, which took place at the Tate, which included a number of works by Ithell Colquhoun. And so I've only known of the painted work for some 6-7 years or so. Prior to that, I'd known of her written work as a surrealist writer from a number of reprints that have been done of her work over the years. But in here, she's illustrating her own story. And so having become fascinated by her work, I looked around to see what was available. And over the years, the hand of Ithell, which you've heard mentioned earlier on, has moved, and somehow or other it's been possible to find some of the original works. This one you would have seen earlier on in the slideshow. This is an illustration of fungus from the Lamorna Valley here. Another one here, which is an illustration again from the Living Stones, which is of a rock pool, I imagine just down in the cove there, which she would have seen and then used as an illustration in the book. And there's also another illustration here, and that's of Pascal and Arne, which again that comes from the Living Stones.
It's worth having a close look at these in a minute, because although they're in the book and in the other edition, it's these pictures. So it really brings them to life, doesn't it? The printing there's never really given them justice. Yeah. It's the first edition it doesn't. They're really quite amazing, especially this one. I mean, this really does. It's just so full of life, isn't it? The spark in that.
Yeah, in the book it's a very small image.
Yeah, it's very small. Yeah.
Fantastic. So, and then a couple of the others. This is a self-portrait which was done in 1947. You can see that one. And I think it inspired a number of the people in the workshop here to embark on the idea of what if I could do an abstract self-portrait? So it's an interesting idea, isn't it?
It's a strange exercise. I recommend it.
Yes, and a number of people have produced works based on that idea. So, and this was a watercolour, and luckily, as we may have said earlier, but there's often a lot of information on the back of Ithell Colquhoun's paintings. So if we can turn this one round, it tells a story. So we can see from here where it's been exhibited. We can see her signature. We can see that when it was painted originally, but then we can also see some information about it was given to a friend of hers called Sheila, and given to her in 1976, and then would have passed on from there, and eventually ended up in an auction also, and descended in that way. So I and others have been very careful to make sure that when pieces are reframed, whether it's for exhibition or whether it's for private collection, that all of this information is carefully preserved as well, because a lot of that vital information is there. Often there is a label indicating either the Val Cave address, which is up the road here, or the studio in Poole, and you would see those on the back.